I'm sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened. The ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry.
On a warm February evening in 2020 in Winter Park, Florida, the world of Sarah Boone, an otherwise unremarkable woman, unraveled into one of the most chilling and bizarre murder cases in recent memory. A lover's game turned into a nightmare, leaving her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., dead inside a suitcase. Welcome back to the true stories of the Diary of Darkness. Let's delve into the case of the Suitcase Killer. Sarah Boone's life began in the quiet suburban neighborhoods of Winter Park, Florida. Nestled amid the palm trees and picturesque lakes, the small community was a place where time seemed to move slower, and everyone knew each other's business. Sarah grew up in a modest household, the eldest of 3 siblings. Her parents, William and Cynthia, were hardworking and traditional. William worked as a construction foreman, and Cynthia was a homemaker who took pride in keeping the family close-knit. As a child, Sarah was known for her bright smile and cheerful demeanor. She excelled academically, often bringing home report cards that her mother proudly displayed on the refrigerator. Teachers noted her potential, describing her as curious, intelligent, and articulate. However, there was a side of Sarah that emerged as she grew older, a fiery temper that could turn a minor disagreement into a dramatic fallout. Her siblings often bore the brunt of this temperament, and as the years went by, the rift between Sarah and her family grew. High school marked a turning point for Sarah. She was neither the most popular nor the most overlooked student. She found her niche in a small circle of friends who shared her love of music and art. Yet it was during these years that her rebellious streak began to take shape. Sarah had a knack for pushing boundaries, sneaking out past curfew, skipping classes, and dating boys her parents disapproved of. While her peers saw her as fun and daring, her parents worried about her growing disregard for authority. Her first serious relationship at age 17 was with a boy named Jason. He was charming and wild, the kind of person who could talk his way out of any situation. Their romance was intense, filled with passionate highs and equally dramatic lows. Friends recalled their frequent arguments, some of which escalated to public shouting matches. It was Jason who introduced Sarah to alcohol, a vice that would later play a significant role in her life. The relationship ended abruptly after a particularly heated argument, leaving Sarah devastated. After high school, Sarah chose not to attend college, much to her parents' disappointment. Instead, she worked a series of odd jobs, from waitressing at a local diner to clerical work at a real estate office. Her life during this period was marked by instability. She moved frequently, drifting from one group of friends to another, and struggled to find a sense of purpose. Her drinking became more frequent, often serving as a coping mechanism for the stress and uncertainty of her life. It was during her late 20s that Sarah met Jorge Torres Jr. Their meeting was unremarkable, a chance encounter at a local bar where Jorge was celebrating a friend's birthday. Jorge, who was several years younger than Sarah, was instantly drawn to her confidence and humor. He worked as a handyman, a job that suited his quiet, unassuming personality. Their relationship began on a positive note. Jorge was patient and caring, qualities that Sarah found comforting after a string of tumultuous relationships. They moved in together within a year, settling into a small one-bedroom apartment in Winter Park. For a time it seemed as though Sarah had found stability. However, cracks soon began to show. Friends and neighbors described their relationship as a roller coaster, intense love one moment and explosive fights the next. The couple's arguments were frequent and often loud enough to draw the attention of those living nearby. Police reports from this period reveal a pattern of domestic disturbances, with both Sarah and Jorge accusing each other of verbal and physical abuse. Alcohol was a common factor in these disputes. Sarah's drinking, which had been manageable in her earlier years, now bordered on dependency. Jorge, too, had begun drinking heavily, a habit that only fueled their conflicts. Despite this, they stayed together, each clinging to the hope that things would improve. Their relationship took a darker turn when financial struggles began to weigh on them. Jorge's work as a handyman provided a modest income, but it was often inconsistent. Sarah's sporadic employment and her tendency to spend impulsively added to their stress. They often fought about money, with Jorge accusing Sarah of being irresponsible and Sarah countering that Jorge lacked ambition. Despite their challenges, there were moments of genuine affection between them. Friends recalled seeing the couple laughing together at barbecues or sharing quiet moments at local parks. These glimpses of happiness made it difficult for those around them to see the full extent of the toxicity that had taken root in their relationship. By 2020, the strain of their volatile dynamic had reached a breaking point. Sarah, now in her early 40s, was feeling the weight of unfulfilled ambitions and a life that had not turned out as she'd hoped. Jorge, at 42, was equally disillusioned but lacked the will to leave the relationship. They were bound together by a complex web of love, resentment, and dependency. It was in this pressure cooker environment that the tragic events of February 23, 2020, unfolded. The once vibrant woman who had charmed Jorge years ago was now a shadow of herself, weighed down by years of unresolved pain and anger. It was the evening of February 23, 2020, and the air in the small Winter Park apartment was thick with tension. Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres Jr. were several drinks into what had started as a quiet night together. A bottle of wine sat nearly empty on the coffee table, and the faint smell of beer lingered in the air. This was not unusual for the couple. Alcohol was a common companion in their evenings, often dulling the sharp edges of their volatile relationship. That night, though, something felt different. The couple had been arguing earlier in the day, a spat triggered by something minor but typical. George had forgotten to do a chore Sarah had asked of him. The fight had been loud and emotional, as most of theirs were, with accusations flying back and forth. But by the evening, the storm seemed to have passed. They had made amends, or so it appeared, and decided to spend the night playing games, a small attempt to reconnect and recapture the lightheartedness that had long since drained from their relationship. Sarah would later tell police that they had been playing hide-and-seek, a seemingly innocent game meant to inject some fun into their otherwise strained night. She said it had been Jorge's idea to climb into the suitcase, laughing as he contorted himself to fit inside the large blue bag. At first the mood was playful. Sarah zipped the suitcase shut and spun it around on the floor, joking about how she would leave him in there for a while. Jorge's laughter echoed from inside, muffled by the thick fabric. But as the minutes passed, his tone shifted. "I can't breathe!" Jorge shouted from inside the suitcase, his voice laced with panic. Sarah, her phone in hand, recorded the exchange, laughing as Jorge's protests grew more desperate. "That's what I feel like when you cheat on me," she quipped, her words sharp and cutting. Jorge begged for release, his pleas growing fainter with each passing moment. But Sarah, either too drunk or too angry, or both, to grasp the seriousness of the situation, continued to mock him. Her laughter filled the room, blending with the sound of Jorge struggling inside the suitcase. Eventually the noise from within the suitcase stopped. Silence fell over the apartment. When questioned later, Sarah claimed she had fallen asleep after recording the videos, leaving Jorge inside the suitcase overnight. She said she woke up the next morning and, realizing he wasn't in bed, went to check on him. That was when she found the suitcase lying on its side in the living room. She unzipped it and discovered Jorge's lifeless body curled inside. In her frantic 911 call, Sarah's voice was panicked and uneven. "My boyfriend is dead!" she cried, telling the dispatcher it had been an accident. When paramedics and police arrived, the scene told a different story. The suitcase showed signs of Jorge's desperate attempts to escape, abrasions on the fabric, and his hands bore cuts and bruises. Sarah's erratic behavior and the damning videos on her phone turned the investigation toward foul play. The videos became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case when Sarah was charged with second-degree murder. In court, they revealed a chilling glimpse into the final moments of Jorge's life. His muffled voice, pleading for air, contrasted starkly with Sarah's mocking laughter and casual remarks. During her trial, Sarah's defense argued that her actions were a result of impaired judgment caused by alcohol and the emotional toll of a toxic relationship. They described her as a woman overwhelmed by years of mutual abuse, portraying her as a tragic figure rather than a cold-blooded killer. But the prosecution countered with the stark reality of the evidence. This was not an accident, they argued. Sarah Boone made a conscious decision to leave George in that suitcase, ignoring his cries for help. This was an act of cruelty, not negligence. The jury deliberated for days before delivering a unanimous verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Sarah Boone was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Let me know, what do you think of this case and which you would like to see next?